Hello, my name is Nathan Ashley, and welcome to my Borderlands Fight for Your Life system presentation. The breakdown. What is the Fight for Your Life system? Well, the Fight for Your Life system from Borderlands basically makes it so that when you reach 0 HP, you enter a down state. When the player is knocked down, their movement is heavily restricted, and you can only do minimum inputs like crawling and shooting. On top of that, your field of view is increased, and the player goes, like I said, into a down state. After that, there's the second win condition. And what that does is it basically makes it so that if you kill an enemy before the timer runs out, then you get back up and you regain your health, shields, whatever. Your stats basically just get reset. Now, if you don't kill an enemy during that second win time window, then you die. So moving on, I'm going to show you my system and how it works and all of that jazz. So as you can see, I took some damage. I went into a down state. Now, in this down state, I can either shoot that enemy in front of me or I can die. Now, when you die, you respawn at these base stations and it finds the nearest one. And this is what happens when you go into the second wind state. You get back up and your HP is reset. Moving into the logic, there is quite a bit that goes into this system, but I was able to break it down into blueprint components to try and make it manageable. On top of that, I also used enumerators and other events and functions and things of that nature. As you can see in the first person character, we check on any damage if the player is down. Now, if the player takes damage, then it decrements the health, and if HP is less than or equal to 0, then the player enters a down state. When in that down state, we then set the ability to be able to enter the Fight for Your Life system, and then if you can enter that, we enter the system. Moving on, we have the blueprint component for the Fight for Your Life system. So this is the first main function that we use, and it's enter Fight for Your Life. So what we do is we do another check to see if the player is downed, just in case. And then we set up the Fight for Your Life system. We play a sound, set the bleed out time, and then we set downed, and then we go into our end bleed out function. Now what that does is it switches between that enum, and it's kind of like a state machine, if you will. And then what we do is we activate the timer tick Fight for Your Life. And what that does is it allows us to count down from 10, I believe it is. So this is tick Fight for Your Life. We yet again check to see if they're downed. And then what we do is we calculate the bleed out time. Now this is just some math, and I used a struct to hold some variables. Now what I did is I took out the set bleed out time, plugged it in to the function. It does some math, and then what we do is we put that onto our execute dead logic. But yeah, what these do is execute dead logic and execute second wind logic. They basically just check to see if health is less than or equal to 0 and time. All right, now this is end bleed out. Like I said, this is kind of like our state machine. So on downed, you can see that we set the Fight for Your Life camera and we set the max walk speed. That is just so that the player is not as fast and is downed. Now, when the player is dead, we cancel out our tick Fight for Your Life function. We find the nearest spawn point. Now that is the little white box that you saw earlier. I believe I called them base stations. But yeah. And then what we do to finish it off is we set the player state to alive, which is doing nothing. And then we reset Fight for Your Life. Now in the second wind, it's pretty similar. all we do is we add the second wind HUD to the screen. Now, moving on. What went right? For the most part, not for the most part, the mechanic is fully functional and has no bugs that I'm able to find or know of. I created the blueprint component, Fight for Your Life. I used the struct, and I used the enumerator and the data tables to make this as modular and expandable as I could. And to my knowledge, it should work on any actor that it's applied to, as long as they're able to take damage. And then finally, this is an addition to my Borderlands style loot system, so it was really nice to see this project grow and evolve. I intend to make a full gameplay loop of Borderlands, but that is for another day. Now, what went wrong? There is absolutely no art in the game, and it could definitely use some polish. I'd like for there to be a zoom out when you go down instead of just switching the FOVs. But one thing that I figured out was that you can't use timelines in functions. You have to use those in event graphs. So that made it a little bit more complicated, and I just made it the way I did. Now, what did I learn? I learned how to make the system. I figured out what should live where and what to call and when to call it. And on top of that, like I said earlier, the timeline nodes are only in event graphs, and that made my life very difficult. So, yeah. Thank you for watching, and that's it. Thank you for watching.